I remember the day I visited the ancient temple with a monk. The sun was rising softly over the hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. The air was calm, carrying the scent of incense that drifted from the temple gates. As I walked up the stone steps, the monk who guided me moved with quiet grace, each step deliberate, as if he carried centuries of wisdom within his simple stride. The temple stood tall, its roof curved like the wings of a bird ready to fly. Bells chimed gently in the wind, and the sound blended with the rustling leaves of the old trees surrounding the courtyard. The monk smiled at me, his face peaceful, his eyes kind. Without words, he showed me the way inside. Inside the temple, the atmosphere shifted. Candles flickered, casting warm light on statues of serene figures carved in stone. The air felt heavy yet comforting, like the temple walls held the prayers of thousands of souls. The monk invited me to sit on the mat beside him. He closed his eyes, folded his hands, and began to chant. The sound was low and steady, echoing through the hall like a heartbeat of the earth itself. I closed my eyes and listened. The chanting was more than sound. It was a rhythm that seemed to wash away my thoughts. For the first time in a long while, I felt my mind become still. The monk later spoke softly about patience, kindness, and the strength found in silence. His words were simple, but they reached deep, like water seeping into dry ground. When we stepped outside again, the sky was bright, and the temple bells rang once more. I felt lighter, as if I had left behind a burden I did not even know I was carrying. Visiting the temple with the monk was not just a journey to a sacred place, it was a journey into peace itself. The monk led me deeper into the temple grounds after our time of chanting. We walked along a narrow stone path lined with lotus ponds. The flowers floated gently on the water, their petals wide open as if greeting the sun. The monk told me that the lotus is a symbol of purity, for even though it grows in muddy waters, it rises above the surface untouched and beautiful. He smiled at me and said, "Life is like the lotus. No matter where we come from, we can choose to rise and open toward the light." We reached a small garden where an old banyan tree spread its roots like a living sculpture. Beneath its shade stood a wooden bench, and the monk invited me to sit. He spoke about his life before he became a monk. He once lived in the noise of cities, chasing wealth and ambition, yet he always felt empty. Only when he entered the temple did he discover a different kind of richness, the richness of inner peace. I listened carefully, realizing how his story reflected struggles I too had faced in my own way. The monk then guided me in walking meditation. We took slow steps, one after another, breathing with each movement. He told me not to rush, not to think of the past or the future, but simply to notice the present, the way the wind touched my skin, the way the stones pressed under my feet, the way my breath entered and left my body. At first, my thoughts wandered, but slowly, a calm awareness grew. The world became sharper, clearer, as though I had been seeing everything through fog before. Later, we shared a simple meal inside the temple hall. Bowls of rice, vegetables, and tea were placed before us. The monk reminded me that eating is also a form of meditation, an act of gratitude. I followed his example, eating slowly, chewing each bite, and feeling thankful for the food that nature and many hands had provided. It was the simplest meal I had in years, yet it tasted richer than any feast. In the afternoon, the monk took me to a bell tower. He invited me to ring the great bronze bell. When I pulled the wooden beam and struck it, the sound rolled across the temple grounds like thunder mixed with music. The vibration shook through my chest and seemed to clear away the heaviness in my heart. The monk explained that each ring of the bell carries a prayer for peace, not only for the one who rings it, but for all beings in the world. We ended the day sitting together as the sun began to set. The sky turned purple and red, and the temple roof glowed softly in the fading light. The monk shared his last teaching of the day. Happiness is not a place you reach after a long journey. Happiness is each step you take. If you walk with mindfulness, his words stayed with me, echoing like the bell long after it stopped ringing. When I finally left the temple, I felt transformed. The silence that once frightened me became a friend. The lessons of patience, gratitude, and mindfulness became treasures I carried within me. I realized that the true temple was not only the one made of stone and wood, but also the one within my heart. The visit with the monk was not just a single-day experience. It was a memory that would shape my life for years. Whenever I felt lost, I would close my eyes, breathe slowly, and return to that temple in my mind. I would hear the bell, see the lotus, and remember the monk's gentle smile. And in that moment, I would find peace again. The following morning, I returned to the temple once more. The monk welcomed me warmly, as if I had always belonged there. He guided me to the meditation hall, where the golden statues of the Buddha sat silently, their calm expressions reflecting eternal peace. The hall was filled with the faint scent of sandalwood, and the early sunlight streamed through the open windows, painting the floor with patterns of gold. The monk asked me to sit quietly again, but this time, instead of guiding me step by step, he simply said, "Be with yourself." At first, I struggled. My mind wanted to wander, to think about my daily life, my responsibilities, and my future. Yet, as the minutes stretched into an hour, I felt a shift. I began to notice the sound of my breath more clearly. I noticed the steady beat of my heart, and I noticed that within the silence, I was not alone. I was with myself, and that was enough. After meditation, the monk shared another story. He told me about a farmer who worried every day about whether his crops would grow. The farmer constantly dug up the soil to check the roots, which only harmed the plants. Finally, he learned that patience and trust were the best nourishment. The monk looked at me and said, "Do not dig up your own life with constant worry. Trust that if you plant seeds of kindness and effort, they will grow in their own time." His story felt like an answer to a question I had carried in my heart for years. We walked again around the temple grounds. This time, I noticed things I had missed before: the way the small birds landed on the temple roof, the tiny ants moving in a line across the stones, the sound of leaves rustling gently in the wind. It was as if the world had been there all along, waiting for me to slow down enough to see it. The monk said softly, "When you see clearly, every step becomes a prayer." Later, we visited the temple library, a quiet room filled with ancient books and scrolls. The monk showed me texts filled with wisdom, passed down for centuries. I could not read all the words, but I could feel the weight of knowledge resting in the room. He reminded me that learning never ends, but true wisdom comes when knowledge is lived, not just studied. That lesson touched me deeply, for I had always chased information, but rarely slowed down to live by it. Before I left, the monk gave me a small string bracelet tied with a simple knot. He said it was not magic, but a reminder to live with mindfulness, gratitude, and compassion. He tied it gently on my wrist, and I promised myself that I would carry its meaning into my everyday life. When I walked down the steps of the temple, the world outside felt different. The streets were the same. The people were the same. Yet my heart was lighter. I realized that the temple was not just a place on a mountain. It was a place I could carry within me. The monk's words echoed in my mind. Happiness is not far away. Happiness is here, in each mindful breath, in each grateful step. From that day on, whenever I faced difficulties, I closed my eyes and returned to the lessons of the temple. I remembered the lotus rising above muddy waters, the farmer who learned patience, and the ringing of the great bronze bell that carried peace across the world. And in those moments, I knew I had not just visited a temple. I had discovered a sanctuary within myself.